Hello and welcome to a 50-cent tour of Tuesday, July 9th, 2013. Please find a seat on the Liberty Bus and we will begin our tour. Shocking photos and video shows golden corral more disgusting than a cow feedlot. I'm not a fan of eating in buffets. I tend to enjoy some restaurants. My daughter has worked in enough restaurants that she tells me she really does not want to eat in virtually any restaurant because people who work there, they don't all care that much about how things are done, and sometimes unfortunate things happen. If you've ever seen the movie The Birdcage, in the intro, in the kitchen, it shows some guy dropping half a chicken on the floor and just picking it back up and putting it on somebody's plate. So those kinds of things do happen, and you gotta watch out for that. Noncompliance, a spiritual revolution. And the photo is just people with a sign that says, "We are not your slaves." And David Icke has spoken a lot about noncompliance, just stating that if none of us comply with some of these absurd laws, then they're non-enforceable, and that's pretty well, negates the laws. That's, I guess, its own form of nullification. And I want to give a little attention to the Egypt coup. With all these different stories, with Snowden, with Egypt, so many of these different stories, we have so many points of view, and it's difficult at times to know exactly what's going on. So I have a couple points of view. This from the activist post, and these points of view are basically similar. They're not really that different, but there's just this muddy water surrounding this coup. Was it good guys? Was it bad guys? It seems like people are having difficulty. People in the liberty movement are having difficulty determining that. So here's another article: Why the Muslim Brotherhood was overthrown. Cult and democracies don't mix. Now, this is my initial response to all this. This is, my gut feeling that this group was overthrown because they're evil. And the activist post article has mentions how it's become a police state. There's martial law, and that does tend to happen. Probably even in a good coup, or for something that has a positive end to it, because somebody's going to be upset, even if it's just because they're confused and they don't like having their boat rocked. There will be people who will be upset and who will react. So, and I'm thinking of all this in terms of what if something similar happens in this country, because we don't have our constitutional republic. There's this other corporation that claims to be the government, and somehow we're going to have restoration. And will that look like a military coup when it happens? I don't know. But I think that we will need to stay light on our feet and continue to allow the Holy Spirit to speak to us, and kind of trust our instincts to some extent, and watch how things play out, because any tree is known by its fruit. So as things change in the world, as there's upheaval, it's very important for us to remain connected to the Lord, to Creator, positive whatever your word for God is, and to remain connected with other people who have the ability to exercise discernment and determine what is going on. And where do we stand as far as when that might happen? 72% of Americans believe the NSA is blackmailing judges and members of Congress. What does this say about our government? I mean, okay, this is 72% of the American people believe this is going on. This is good for nobody except those on the receiving end of the blackmailing, and that is that these corporations that are blackmailing the judges and members of Congress so that they will make decisions that promote these people's businesses, so these people can make more money. It's all about money. And this is not the way to run a lawful republic. Family sues after dangerous flu vaccine causes child to become severely brain damaged. It's horrible that this happened, but the lawsuit, it's not about revenge. As I've said about other subjects, what people who love money understand is lawsuits that take away their money. And I think that lawsuits are a viable way of struggling with the evil people who we find ourselves under a tyranny of. That sentence was not grammatically correct, but you know what I mean. Okay, how marinating your meat can help you avoid getting cancer. So this is good news, I think, because, marinated meat is tasty and tender anyway. The good news is that harmful compounds can be prevented from forming by first marinating meat. According to several recent studies, marinating meat basically protects it from becoming damaged by high heat. The reason for this, according to some informed experts, is that marinades typically contain herbs, spices, and other agents that are high in antioxidants. So, take a little time as you are barbecuing and preparing to barbecue, and add some marinade to your meat. And I have our bit of good news, but I'm not actually going to end with this today, but rosemary is linked to enhanced brain performance and other health benefits. So hey, add some rosemary to your marinade for your meat. So what I do want to end with today is just addressing for a minute something that I'm feeling, and I'm guessing that a lot of people are feeling, just kind of spent. We know what's wrong. We have hopes that reparations will be made. We have hopes that change will come, and they will. But the way that we are wired, by not, just generally, but also by television and just generally how we're taught in this age to expect things to happen, we're kind of wired to anticipate change to come quickly, even when it's significant. Now it can, and last week, or maybe the week before, I had the scripture about can a nation be saved in a day, and how Athaliah was removed from her position suddenly in one day. So that does happen. But I just feel like in this season, I think some of us expected something to happen around the 4th of July. Quite honestly, I did. Maybe that was naive. But it is what it is. I want so much for positive change to come that, I'm feeling a little spent. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. My heart's not sick, really. It's not even that hope is deferred. It's just that it's taking, the object of hope is taking a little bit longer to show itself, to manifest. So I just have a couple of Bible verses meant as encouragement. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. Now this, it's all about our provision. How long can we go without running out? And I'm mostly talking about emotionally right now. And I realize there are some people who financially are running out of provisions too. This verse, because we're somewhat removed from the land, sometimes we don't realize the depth of meaning of this verse. This seed that they're carrying to sow, I mean, they're not weeping because they had to get up early that morning or something, or because the ground was bumpy. This seed that they're carrying to sow, with grain, what you eat, the grain is the seed. And they were carrying seed out to plant that they and their families could have eaten. So there's sacrifice here. They're weeping because they don't know if their families will have enough to eat. But they're taking that seed and putting it in the ground. And that's the kind of investment that, that we make on, and just in waiting for liberty to manifest in whatever it is that we do. I had those practical suggestions yesterday of things that we can do to serve to bring restoration to our country and our world. Sometimes we have to do those things when we feel as if we don't have enough provisions to cover ourselves. And again, I'm mostly talking about emotional provisions. And here's another example. Elijah and the widow at Zarephath. Elijah, there was a famine because there was no rain. And Elijah, even though he was the one holding back the rain and had prophesied, that there wouldn't be rain, he was also himself struggling with hunger. Food was hard to come by, even for him. It's not like he had some, magical tree that kept, giving him fruit. He had to scramble a little to find something to eat himself. But he found a widow, who, by the way, this is not his people. This was in another community. He asked the widow, bring me a little water in a jar so I can have a drink, and bring me a piece of bread. And her response was, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die. That was it. That was the end of her food. Most of us don't experience that. The closest we come is probably, the last couple of days before grocery day. But she didn't have the option of going out and buying groceries. This was it. She was done. So Elijah asked her, hey, make some bread for me first, and then make something for yourself and your son. And the God of Israel says the jar of flour will not be used up and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. So she she had to do this by faith, you know. She made this sacrifice. She spent the last that she had. She gave out what she believed was her last. And as a result, God sustained her. And the miracle was that there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. So, you know, she had to make the sacrifice first. And I guess that's really what I'm trying to communicate, is that we might feel like we're at the end of ourselves waiting for change. But we just have to go that extra however many miles. We have to put that seed in the ground. We have to, you know, be hospitable and give to people as requested, required, and just trust the Lord that He will show Himself faithful, as He always does, because He always is. The Daily Tour is a presentation of She Who Will Walk in the Dark Productions. We thank you for being with us for today's tour. The dawn is coming. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will find grace to get through your day, and even if you're weeping, that you'll keep going forth with that seed for sowing. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.